Hello, I'm Kevin Sharp. I'm the director of the Dixon Gallery and Gardens, and I'd just like to welcome you to our second director's tour of one of our exhibitions. And this exhibition is Illuminating the Word, the St. John's Bible, which is a show organized by St. John's University in Collegeville, Minnesota, and it features a single object, one work of art, one extraordinary work of art, the St. John's Bible, which is this object. It's the first hand-illuminated and hand-illustrated Bible that a monastery has commissioned in about 500 years. And it's just such an exceptional object. And I'll tell you a bit about the story of how this amazing work of art came into being. As we go through the show, I'm going to show you a handful of my favorite pages from the St. John's Bible, and I hope you'll come out and see this extraordinary show, because it is kind of a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to experience this work in this particular way. The Bible has not been bound yet, so it's separate folios throughout, and so you can see more of the Bible than you'll ever be able to once it's turned into its 7 volumes that it will ultimately become. So we're going to have a great time looking at these remarkable pages by extraordinary artists that took 15 years to make. And I hope you'll enjoy this little tour as much as I enjoy spending time with these exceptional pages. So what do you say? Let's get on with the tour. All right, I'm going to start this tour with a small confession. One, I don't know very much about the Bible, okay? But the one thing I do know is that, it starts with the book of Genesis. And so that's where I'm launching this tour. And because I've had the privilege of having any number of conversations with Tim Turnus, who's the curator of this extraordinary exhibition, I know a little bit about what this page is all about, and the iconography that goes into it. Now, first, let me tell you, since we're at Genesis, let me tell you a bit about the genesis of the project. Probably the world's leading calligrapher, a man named Donald Jackson, who lives in Wales and is the official court scribe to Queen Elizabeth. So kind of a big deal boss, okay? And kind of a big deal calligrapher and scribe. He goes to St. John's University in 1995. He's invited there for some reason, I can't remember why, but he goes there, all right? And he says, in a way that I suspect only a calligrapher could, he poses the question, so what are you going to be doing for the millennium? And the people at St. John's University, it's 1995, the millennium's 5 years away, say to themselves, well, we don't know. And at that point, Donald Jackson plants the seed of doing a Bible, commissioning a hand-illustrated and hand-illuminated Bible. And so they think about it for 3 years, because this is not an easy, small undertaking. I mean, it's not like building Chartres Cathedral where, it took 100 years to get the thing built, but it's a little bit like that. That's a project that could go on for decades. In this case, it went on for 15 years, but it's a long project involving lots of people, and it was not an undertaking that you would embrace lightly. And so by the millennium, they had decided to do it, the project was underway. And some of the things that made this project even possible was the fact that Donald Jackson had been planning for it his entire life. I mean, at that point, he's probably in his late 50s, but he had been thinking about creating just such a Bible for the entirety of his life. And that's not to say he wasn't just thinking about it. He was physically preparing. And one of the things that he did 45 years earlier was a print shop or a color shop of some kind was going out of business years and years earlier, and they were selling inks. They were selling their inks at bargain basement prices. I mean, it was a we're going out of business sale, and we're selling all our stuff, and Donald Jackson bought ink 45 years before he was ever going to use it. And that ink, at that time he bought it, was already 150 years old. So, or something like that, you know. And so the fact that he had accumulated these exceptional materials is part of what made that project possible, because what he bought for pennies would have cost tens of thousands of dollars in 1998. And so anyway, so he's got these materials, and he has, by 1998, 99, 2000, he's put together a team, I think, of something like 23 different artists, scribes, and calligraphers, and they have begun work on the St. John's Bible. And this Bible is so extraordinary for lots of reasons. One, yes, it's recreating an ancient text, but it's also very much a work of contemporary art. And the artistry and the calligraphy is so exceptional and so beautiful. You know, you can enjoy it on a myriad of levels. Now, I like this page from Genesis because, you know, I like the idea that the artist elected to incorporate more than one cultural reference point and more than one religion, which is a very, very bold thing to do. It would almost be the work of a heretic 500 years ago, but in our more pluralistic society and culture, we're open to the possibilities. And so in this opening page of Genesis, you'll see that the forms are columnar, and there are 7 of them. And to some degree, it speaks to the 7 days that God spent creating the earth, or the 6 days and the 7th day that he rested. And you move from a kind of chaos on the left side through a more verdant and luminous period, and to the creation and evolution of man, to a kind of quiet panel at the end. It's just extraordinary. The iconography is incredible. You know, for this green verdant panel at the center, almost at the center on the 3rd day, I guess you would say, you know, it's actually a map. It's actually a topographic map of the Ganges River in India. You know, so they're drawing on amazing sources. The figures in the 6th panel come from some of the earliest, are based on some of the earliest drawings, cave drawings that were found in Nigeria, and including one of the first representations of a woman. And that's powerful stuff. And so, and you have to really spend time with it. You really have to spend time with it to and look at it carefully to really experience all that these pages have to offer. There's also a bird at the center, and there's been lots of discussion of, well, is it a bird? Is it a shadow of a bird? Is it a dove? It doesn't look like a dove that Tim Turner saw in Minnesota. It doesn't look particularly like a dove I've seen here, at least in terms of color. But it almost seems to me to be kind of hovering over the composition. But at any rate, it's one of many iconographic images that we see in this page, and to me, it's incredibly powerful. Probably my favorite book in the Bible is the book of Job. And again, I'm not going to give you a whole lot of insight into biblical themes and what they mean, but Job is just somebody that, you know, I think all of us should be able to relate to on some level or another. Briefly, Job was a guy who had it all. had a great family, was an incredibly successful. Was he a farmer? If he was a farmer, he's a big deal farmer, but because he has thousands and thousands of sheep and thousands of donkeys and camels and all the stuff. He's incredibly successful, and through a variety of means, he loses all of it. He loses every bit of it. Now, he loses it not because he's a bad farmer. He loses it because, the devil gets into an argument with God, and the devil says, "Yeah, you're so proud of your guy Job. Well, Job will crumble like a house of cards once all that good fortune goes away." And God says, "No, he won't. No, he won't." And so the devil just starts wreaking havoc on Job. Just starts, his children are killed, his houses are burned down, his animals are either stolen or destroyed somehow. Job loses everything. And still he remains pious and reverent in his love of God. And, it's a tough story in some ways, because certainly we don't want to wish loss on anyone, but who among us has not felt some kind of loss, and who hasn't been tempted to lose faith, whether it's in your religion or whether it's in yourself or the world or whatever, during difficult times. And so Job is a biblical story that is powerful and meaningful, I think. And you can see the power of it in the illustration. You have to look very closely, but Job's wealth is literally drifting right out of the illustration. You have to look very closely to see it, but there go his donkeys, there go his sheep, there go his camels, there go his cattle. They're heading right out of the illustration on this side. And you can see again, just as we saw in Genesis, this first panel representing a kind of chaos, a kind of nothingness out of which everything emerges. It's the same thing here. There's a kind of orderly panel, and then there's this wild color, this deep, almost. It looks almost like hell in a way to me. Fire and brimstone and all that stuff. The other thing that I really like about this particular page is that Donald Jackson, the man I told you about, the calligrapher to the Queen, this extraordinarily talented man, says that this is the most beautiful page of calligraphy in the whole of the St. John's Bible. And to me, that makes a certain amount of sense. Now, I don't have enough knowledge of calligraphy, enough experience looking at one page next to another. I had to know what he's really talking about, but I know that he knows what he's talking about, and so I tend to believe him. But here's the thing, it's appropriate in my view that the most beautiful page of calligraphy is the book of Job, the book that stresses the virtue of patience. And what do you need more of to make the most beautiful page of calligraphy in an entire Bible than patience? For someone like me who's more steeped in art than in biblical knowledge, there's still lots and lots for me to take away from this exhibition. And the thing that this show does is show the development of the object. And I love that. And so what we get in the book of Psalms is the working drawing, you might say, that leads to the finished process. And the working drawing in this opening of Psalms it could have come out of the wildest artist studio you can even imagine. It is a crazy collage of varying materials. I mean, and varying materials on top of various supports. And what I mean by that is like, they're painting on paper, they're painting on mylar, they're painting on tape, they're taping it all together, they're moving it around, they're putting it back. Some of it is standing right off the page. It doesn't even lay flat anymore because they've worked the text so vigorously. But they're also working out the composition, working out the compositional elements that will wind up in the finished page. And that's just having an idea of how thorough the process is for this project. That's why it took 15 years to make this incredible object. And we just had a collage show here at the Dixon, and I loved it. I mean, collage is said to be very much the aesthetic of the 20th century, and it gets shown to great effect right here. I mean, I like the messiness of collage. I like that, you get to see how things are put together. Things don't lay down perfectly nicely because, well, things don't lay down perfectly nicely in life or in works of art. And so this object, I love the tactile quality of it. I feel like I can see the artist's hand in these materials and the way they're figuring things out, and that's really, really rich as far as I'm concerned. And then if we just move over to here, you get to see the finished object. You get to see the opening spread for the Book of Psalms, and they've actually, the Book of Psalms is actually 5 books, and that's what the artists have come up with. You're actually looking at the spines of books on a shelf in a way, surrounded by text. These are just two very amazing objects right here to see side by side. I'm standing before 2 cases that contain some of the tools that the artists and calligraphers would have used. And I always find, just like I found the collage itself fascinating to look at as a working document alongside the finished product, well, having a glimpse at the tools that these artists used to create the St. John's Bible is really rich and evocative as well. Here's the thing. These artists were working in the early 21st century for the most part, sometime between 1998 and 2011 or something like that. But if a medieval scribe from the 13th century had walked into Donald Jackson's studio one day, done just a little bit of time travel and stepped through the door, he would have recognized every bit of the tools, every one of the tools that Donald Jackson was employing, from the quills to scrapers to the calfskin material that the Bible is actually written on. It's that kind of continuity of tradition is so fascinating. It's so incredibly, incredibly valuable. And you get a little glimpse of it here in these 2 cases. Now, I think this is a particularly special folio right here. This spread is exceptionally beautiful. I love the small vignettes in the margin, and the general illustration looks very traditional biblical to me, and I rather like that. So much of the iconography is non-traditional in the rest of the Bible, that when you find Van Gogh's sower over here sowing seeds, it sort of speaks to me in many respects. It's something to keep in mind, that this will be a bound book at some point, and you can occasionally in this show pick up trim lines where the book will be cut, You can see that it's stapled down actually in some places, or stitched down as the case may be. I think it actually is stitched down. But that will be trimmed in the final Bible. The other thing to keep in mind, and this is just extraordinary to me, is that every bit of this calligraphy was written on top of faintly drawn pencil lines. And it was somebody's job to come in behind and erase all of those pencil lines. Now, had I been part of the St. John's Bible team, I feel confident that my job would have been, erase the lines, because, but even that may have been beyond me. So this particular page I'm showing you because something fascinating happened during the process. It takes, I think that Tim Turnus said that it took about a month to do a page. And so the scribe who did all the calligraphy on this page, and then there's calligraphy on the verso as well on the back. It is a book after all. That might have been done as well. And when the calligrapher got to the end of the last column, she noticed that it's one line longer than the column next to it. And it's like, what happened? As you can imagine, she had a major freak out. I know I would have. I mean, it's a month's work, to her mind, just down the tubes. And she's ready to trash the whole thing. Ready to, let's start all over. I'll give it another month. She feels terrible about the whole thing. Donald Jackson said, "You think you're the first person that ever dropped a line?" This happened all the time in medieval calligraphy. And there is a time-honored fix. And the fix was, they added the line right down here. The missing line is right here. There's a little bird that's flown in with a string that connects to the missing line, and a little arrow over here that will plug it, that directs where that line should go. It's genius, and it speaks to the human condition. We're not perfect, and things happen. And this solution, to my mind, is 1,000 times better than the idea of taking the sheet, balling it up, and throwing it in the trash can and doing it all over again. I like this. I like human frailty. I like our fallibility. We are not perfect. Okay, now we are in the New Testament, and the Gospel according to Matthew. And the book of Matthew, how should I put it? Easily the most boring book in the Bible. It's the one where somebody begets somebody who begets somebody who begets somebody. It's like a long list of the genealogy of Jesus Christ. And so it's important because it traces his life back for 14 generations, and then 14 more, and then 14 more, as I recall. But it's really mostly just this laundry list of names. So it's not the most scintillating reading by any respect, but I think it got, and maybe to compensate for that, it got some of the most beautiful calligraphy and this unbelievably beautiful opening illustration. And here's where you see the open-mindedness of the artist and of the monks who commissioned this wonderful object. They're just willing to, explore ideas and cultures and faiths beyond their own. This tolerance, this empathy, this willingness to be open to possibilities. And so while we have Jesus right at the top of this kind of genealogy chart, we're actually looking at an object that very much resembles a menorah, but there are also Arabic design elements at the top, and this Hindu wheel that you see in so much Indian art from antiquity on forward. And so, and there's much more than that as well. It's an extraordinarily beautiful page, and one I keep coming back to often as I make my way through the show. Plus, it's, they also, in contemporary art, or back in the day, in contemporary art, they said, if you can't make it good, make it red. Okay, the last page I'm going to show you is from, of course, the book of Revelations, where the New Testament offers its prophecies, and it's a very dark page in a way. You see the four horsemen of the apocalypse. We see all of these instruments of war and of heavy industry. It seems to be a folio with a bit of an agenda, but then again, the book of Revelations is a book with a bit of an agenda. So anyway, it's a powerful ending to an extraordinary show that I hope you'll come see. I hope you'll get your mask, come to the Dixon, social distance, and enjoy the show. It is something truly extraordinary, and it's an opportunity to see this Bible. There are more pages on view right here at the Dixon right now than in Collegeville, Minnesota, where the St. John's Bible actually lives. And remember, at some point, it will all get bound into 7 volumes, into 7 huge volumes, and then it'll be quite difficult to see. So come to the Dixon, enjoy the show. It's been great being with you. I wish you were here with me right now, and I feel certain that you will be at some point soon. We miss you very much. We thank you for supporting the Dixon. You have made all the difference in this very difficult year. So thank you for that. And we're just trying to hold up our end of the bargain here at the Dixon, and hopefully you think we've done that. So take care of yourselves, and I hope to see you soon.
Hi, Kevin. Hi, Aaron.
Hello, Chantel.
Let me first apologize if you experienced some choppiness with the tour. So much that happens beyond our control now that we have moved to the virtual. So hopefully this tour just wet your whistle enough to go. Am I frozen?
You're a little bit frozen.
Here I am talking about technical difficulties.
But only with the cutest expressions, really.
I seriously doubt that, but thanks for saying it. There's so much that happens beyond our control. So hopefully this tour just wet your whistle enough to come see the exhibition in person. There's a Q&A button down below. So please put questions in the question and answer block, and we're going to get to those, and Kevin is going to answer those questions for you. I am going to get us started. Oh, no, wait, we already have a question. On the Job page, some of the calligraphy is red. Why is that? Is that God speaking?
I'm not sure. It might actually be, because the story of Job, of course, recounts a contentious conversation between God and Satan's absolute determination that Job is going to forsake his beliefs as soon as times get hard. I'm not really sure that that's the part of the story we're in where the text is read. I know that Donald Jackson really likes red, and we know that for any number of reasons. One of which is because there's so many red features so prominently in the palette throughout the St. John's Bible. But here's something interesting I learned today. He signed the contract with St. John's University to create the St. John's Bible with, guess what? a quill pen, and and guess what color the ink was?
Red.
You got it. You got it. You know where I learned that?
Where?
I learned it in this book right here,
Oh.
Illuminating the Word. And it is, this book, this book is, I didn't really feel like I needed to read the book so much, Chantel, in part because we got so much information from Tim Turnus. I mean, he's like a walking St. John's Bible. Tim Turnus is the curator of this show and the curator collection. And well, I described him in the talk anyway, or in the galleries. But I thought I would study up a little bit. This book right here, which is for sale in the Dixon shop, is so good, I almost could have written it myself.
I don't really see that, but okay, I believe you.
No, it's that good. I mean, it's an amazing story. And it's told really, really well. I mean, I was just gonna spot check a few things, and I started reading about the process, and it's a really, really, as you know, really good story, and it's told very, very well here.
Okay, so you heard it here first. Go get a catalog from the museum store, Park and Cherry. It's open now, and they're on sale.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, we've got a couple more questions. Kevin, what is your favorite folio?
My favorite folio. I'm very partial to that page from the Book of Mark, where they drop the line. I mean, I really am kind of touched by that one. And I do like the fact that I do like the illumination on that same page of let he who has ears listen, be a sower of seeds, and it really does remind me a little bit of either Jean-Francois Millet's sower or which influenced Vincent van Gogh's famous painting of a sower. So that one's really good, but it's almost a little bit like picking your favorite child. The show is this object is so meticulously and carefully planned and thought through and designed and executed. And remember, it's not just one artist. I mean, this is like the most complex studio. I mean, the only artist studio I know that is maybe as complex, not quite as disciplined, I would say, would be Warhol's factory. I mean, it's that many different people coming in, and not unlike Warhol's factory, the scriptorium in Wales, where Donald Jackson gathered all these people. I mean, some of them couldn't deal with it. I learned that in the book too. At one point, get this, Chantel. At one point, they had a guy there who was a scribe, a calligrapher, and I mean, we're talking the best calligraphers in the world, and this guy spent a couple of days, in the kind of, not really training, but just because they're already trained, but in a kind of warm up, reconciling all their different hands to one singular aesthetic. One guy, after a couple of days, just sort of walked out of the studio, and they didn't know, and disappeared. And he was gone long enough that they called the police because they were afraid. And he was just like, his mind was so blown by this project that he just had to get away and chill for like the better part of a day.
Wow.
That's how intense it is. And so, getting back to the original question about which one is my favorite, it, like I said, it's hard to choose because there's such a coherence, there's such a unity in this project that was absolutely essential to it. And the kind of unity that could only happen when an artist has been thinking about a project for as long as Donald Jackson was thinking about the St. John's Bible.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so this is from Julie. How did you first hear about the St. John's Bible, and what made you decide to bring it to the Dixon?
I don't remember.
Uh,
No. I heard about it. That's a setup question, but but it's a good question. It's a good question. I heard about it from my friend Jack Becker, who I imagine many of the folks listening in or tuning in tonight have met Jack at one point or another. He's the director of the Joslin Art Museum, and he's been here. He's been to the Dixon any number of times. And anyway, he before he took over the Joslin in about a little after I got to the Dixon, he'd been director at Cheekwood in Nashville, and so, but at some point, like maybe 2004, 2005, the Joslin had done this show. And Jack was toying with the idea of doing it again because the show had done so very well in Omaha back in 2004, 2005. And in fact, they did do it again. It was there just last year. And so, it really only takes, not that he's a salesman or anything, but it really only takes one conversation with Tim Turnus to become, I want to do this project. I want this work of art, in the Dixon. So really it came to us from Jack Becker, the director at Joslin, but Tim Turnus really sold Julie and me when we met with him.
yes, Tim was fantastic. And for those of you who attended the opening lecture, Tim is the person who did that. And I hope that you all enjoyed that. He's such a great advocate for this exhibition and is so excited about anytime that he talks about it. He just does it with such enthusiasm. It's hard not to share that with him.
Yeah.
Okay, so did any of the artists have to take any religious study classes before beginning their work?
Well, as an advanced student of theology myself, it wasn't really necessary. No, I don't think so. Think so. I think mostly, I certainly didn't, and it probably shows. I think everybody else is sort of just depending on their Sunday school and stuff, and yeah. I mean, it would be, it would be super interesting to do. As I think I mentioned to you, Chantel, just the other day. Most of what I know about religion I learned from my Italian Renaissance seminar in undergrad and graduate school, and I found it fascinating at the time, and actually. You couldn't help. It's sort of the same thing. You would look at a Raphael, or you would look at a Domenichino, or you would look at some great work of art, and that was describing an episode from the Bible, and at one time, I don't think I have it anymore, but at one time I had, one of those kind of very idiomatic English Bibles, kind of I think we used to call it the Hippie Bible, because, it was just written, it took out all the things that could trip you up, like the begats and the Old English of the King James Version. And this show is the same way. I mean, what we get are the opening pages of many of these books of the Bible, but reading on could be very interesting as well.
So what's the history of using gold leaf in paintings, and how is it applied to the pages of the St. John's Bible?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, gold leaf, I guess it happens. I guess it happened a lot in the Italian Renaissance, I mean, it was for the special things, the halos on angels and the rays of God from the Trinity, or the rays of light from the Trinity, from God through the dove and to Jesus Christ himself, interestingly, there's a resurgence in the 19th century interest in gold leaf. An artist that I've done a lot of work on, Mary Cassatt, used it in really kind of inventive ways. What she did was, or the only time she really did it was, she, at the same time that Edgar Degas and Jean-Louis Foran are making artist painted fans and introducing gold leaf into the actual fans that they make, Mary Cassatt made this incredible pastel that's still in a private collection in San Francisco, of a young woman in a loge holding a fan. And it's almost like a kind of trompe l'oeil, the gold leaf. She puts gold leaf on the illusion of a fan. It's not a real fan. It's a young woman holding a fan in an image. Now, for Donald Jackson and the artists of the St. John's Bible, they were very intentional about the use of gold leaf, and very smart, I think. Because they tend to reserve it for expressions of God, or expressions of Jesus Christ, or their words, or something that relates back to them. But the wonderful thing that gold leaf does, and what Donald Jackson was trying to achieve, is that it's reflective. Mm-hmm. And so when you're looking at an image that is meant to express God or express Christ, you're actually looking at a reflection of yourself. And that's incredibly, it's incredibly powerful, for one thing, but it's also, I think it's also very much of our time.
Yeah.
It's not saying that we are God, but that we try to reflect positively on as part of God's creation. So it's smart. It's really smart, like every part of this thing.
Yeah. And you're right. It fits in with the contemporary way of teaching about how we're all connected and how God is in us and all of that. Like they used contemporary ways that people teach the Bible and teach about God in all of their illustrations. And I think that incorporation of science, incorporation of, different cultures, all of that is what makes this exhibition so interesting to those who maybe aren't and don't have a Christian background. I think it's something you can find something in this exhibition for everybody, regardless of your background.
Yeah. No, I think that's very, very true. And Tim Turner said if Donald Jackson had made this Bible in the 15th century, which is the last time, a hand illuminated, hand scribed Bible was commissioned by a Benedictine monishery, he'd have probably been imprisoned, for heresy, because it's too pluralistic. It invites too many other ideas, into the conversation, and which makes it, all the more relevant in the global world we live in, and all the more, and to my mind, all the more beautiful.
Okay, we have a few more questions, and Steve Reynolds is like tearing up the Q&A.
Oh, of course he is. Don't just delete his questions.
Oh, no, he has ones. But I'm gonna get to his in a minute. So, will St. John's ever reproduce smaller copies for individuals to own?
Yeah, that's definitely. I think they already have. In fact, I think it's part of the, but it's definitely part of the plan.
Okay. The Illumination. Oh, I kind of touched on that. All right. So, perhaps I missed an explanation of the objective purpose of this work, but could you repeat or explain your understanding of the St. John's Bible in general, I think is what he's referencing.
Okay, well, you were kind of breaking up a little bit there,
No,
you
the
know,
whole time.
but I think the question was, what was the purpose of the St. John's Bible?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, it was. I mean, it originally started. The idea of doing it came from Donald Jackson, this amazing calligrapher in Wales, who's calligrapher to I think to Queen Elizabeth and certainly to the House of Lords, and anyway, big deal calligrapher. Yeah. And he'd come to this calligraphy meeting that St. John's hosted in 1995, and he just floats the idea of what are you thinking about for the millennium? And so in some respects, its origins were in commemorating this important landmark in time, but it becomes far more of an expression of what St. John's University and the Benedictine order are really all about. I mean, if you look at their chapel, designed by the Bauhaus architect Marcel Breuer, I mean, they are an order that values creativity and careful, slow reading of the Bible, and because they believe to some degree that's how it becomes part of you, is this methodical approach to things. And so at a certain point, I think it just dawned on the university president and the monks at St. John's and others that this is precisely what we're supposed to do. I don't think there's necessarily a grand purpose apart from doing exactly what they would be doing anyway, which is careful study, methodical thought, beautiful craftsmanship.
Awesome. Okay, we have a couple of comments that I wanted to share. Diane says the illumination with gold leaf is another reason to see the exhibition. It has to be seen in person. Wonderful exhibit. Chip Marston says, Kevin, thank you so much. Don't ever tell me you don't know a lot about the Bible. Incredible presentation. Can't wait to see the exhibition in person. Thank you. Miss you. Look forward to being together soon.
Same here, buddy.
And then he says, oh, you might have missed the part about humility. And that's probably around the time you were saying you could have written the book because it was so I'm guessing that's what part said that.
Yeah, maybe.
And Kristen Newman Chip is totally right.
Yeah, it seconded that one. Yeah. Those are my good friends.
Yeah. And Steve Reynolds has some really great suggestions on school groups and people to invite to the exhibition, which we are taking note on all of that, Steve. Thank you so much for your comments. Okay, well, I think that's all we have in the Q&A. If anyone else has any other questions, please add them in. Am I frozen?
No, you're
okay.
We're a little.
I need you to just and tell me that I'm not somewhere.
I think you have to stop saying the word frozen because every time you say it, you freeze.
See, you're right. That's probably
just find another word. Find another word. Keep smiling. Yeah, okay. I'm sorry. I'm sorry we're so choppy tonight. I don't know. It's the Wi-Fi or something.
I have no idea.
We've had really good luck up until this all important night when I'm speaking. But
everyone heard you, and everyone has appreciated it so far. And so Thank you, everyone, for being here this evening. Again, I'm sorry for all of the technical difficulties, but we appreciate y'all hanging on and sticking with us to the end. Please, the exhibition in person. It is going to be up through the holidays, and so bring your family, wear your masks, and see St. John's Bible before it closes in January. We love the show. We hope everyone else that has seen it so far also enjoyed it. And just because you've seen it once doesn't mean you can't bring your friends and see it again. So see it as many times as you can. Go to the store, purchase the catalog, and enjoy your Thanksgiving. Have a fantastic week and stay safe. Kevin, do you have any final words?
Yeah, I'm just going to go look up that word humility. It sounds familiar.
Yeah, you should.
Thanks, Chantel. This was great.
All right. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Aaron.
See you,
And
everybody.
have a good night, everyone.